I
Oh, I
can
don't have to. Okay.
in the
Okay, so for the
if you
recording,
click in the button uh, recording.
are we ready? Okay. So welcome back. We are ACI course 5, class 7 on June 27, 2024. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do, please. Bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful glowing golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try to help fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that this is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. and that longing into an intention. And then turn your mind back to that precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that we do, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Right. Again, source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow them with all my strength and reverence. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I have found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I can take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are as fleeting as the bubbles in a sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I have done, the white or black, and what these deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of the Buddha's teaching. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen in too. Grant me then to practice the highest wish for enlightenment, to take upon myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough. For if I am not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the vows for children of the victors. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I have practiced well the paths shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I have entered thus, the cause that gives me both the attainments is keeping my pledges and vows most pure. Grant that I may always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Bless me next to realize the crucial points of both the stages, the essence of secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the 4 times, highest that there is. Bless me, grant me, that the spiritual guide who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, the things within me and outside me that could stop me now, stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay. So last class, we skipped schools, and we're learning about the relationship between karma, as we've been talking about it from Abhidharma school, movement in the mind and what it motivates, is the cause of myriad worlds, meaning all existing things. And last class, we skipped schools to Lord Maitreya's teaching to us Sangha about how our suffering world is perpetuated, how samsara is perpetuated. And then hot on the heels of that, we learned the highest middle ways explanation of what's going on when we perceive something, right? As the explanation that allows us to investigate what must be the actual nature of the thing that we're perceiving versus the nature we think it has. So Lord Maitreya gave us those 6 steps. There are 3 basic dominoes that are falling like technically 65 per instant, I would guess, through which a samsaric being perpetuates their samsaric existence. And it's really an abbreviated form of the wheel of life, but the same idea. So that the first of the six is that you die with bad seeds in your mind, right? No, it's something other than that, right? Oh, Natty nodded her head. Okay, what's the first one? Yeah, you unmuted, but we can't hear you, but I read your lips. We're born with the seeds from having misperceived things in the past. Misperceived them how? Believing they had their qualities and natures in them. Self-natures, self-existent. Let's just use that term. We're born with the seeds of seeing things as self-existent. They haven't ripened yet, although of course they're ripening constantly. So we're born with the seeds. Then second one, what happens? Those seeds ripen, right? The instant we're born, they are ripening. Those seeds are ripening with that ignorance, the ignorance that grasps to me and my parts as self-existent. Me and my parts does mean me, whatever that is, and my parts, but it also means me and everything I experience. Me and my parts. From this arises what?
Ignorant liking and ignorant disliking. Emotions.
No, you're skipping one.
Seeing them separately from coming from their own seeds.
No. Their pleasantness or unpleasantness is seen as being in them. They have their own nature, and so their pleasantness or unpleasantness is in them. From that, we want or we don't want. Ignorant liking, ignorant disliking arises. It's called the misunderstanding arises as attachment or aversion towards the object. Number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We act to get or push away.
And create
6.
purpose.
We have perpetuated the cycle. So it's not like first we're born and we hang out for a little while being born and then those seeds ripen. It's like ding, ding, ding. All of these are happening, you know, simultaneously, you could say, although they can't be simultaneous. But in every instant of me and my experience, these 6 are going on if we perceive ourselves as a suffering being in a suffering world. And because of them, we are perpetuating that suffering world. We're planting new seeds that we will be born with, that will ripen. Me, other, own natures, pleasant, unpleasant in it. I want, I like, I do, to get or avoid. Oops. Okay. So where does that cycle get broken?
When we see things, they're coming from their own side.
When we see things as coming from their own side and we don't believe it anymore. Because then we won't believe that the apparent pleasantness or unpleasantness is in them from them. And then we'll choose, we'll want and not want in a different way. And so we'll choose a different action towards that object. So we can stop perpetuating samsara if between step 1 and step 2, although it happens, if we don't believe it. When do we get to the place where we don't believe it? After seeing emptiness directly, okay, for the first time. Yeah. But does that mean the instant you become Arya, samsara stops for you?
No.
No. Because you still have seeds from having seen things and believed it. And those seeds are continuing to ripen. But the seeds that you're planting from then on out, they are not planting seeds that perpetuate samsara. Does that mean they're not planting seeds at all? No, of course they are. We continue to plant seeds forever, like Buddha does plant seeds. But are they perpetuating their samsara? No, they're burning it off. Thank you very much. Okay. So technically, Aryas don't collect karma. And we'll see why that's true at the end of tonight's class. It does not mean they don't plant seeds and ripen seeds, they do. But the terminology, it gets more specific as we understand better and better what we mean by karma. So Lord Maitreya doesn't say anything about emptiness. It's being implied that if something has a self-nature and stopping believing that the things' self-nature is really in it, implies there's something else you know about the subject-object interaction between natures, identities, and qualities. But it doesn't specifically say, oh, because of emptiness. So we need a little more information to be able to understand. And so Geshe Michael went to, who was it? Master Chandrakirti's Entering the Middle Way text. I think it's the one we were studying. And the section in there called the Chimbap analysis, the water analysis, which is the equivalent of the pen thing. And in that, this is Madhyamika Prasangika's explanation of what's happening when 3 different beings are perceiving the apparently same object. One object, 3 different beings looking at it. And to increase the depth of the investigation, Master Chandrakirti says, just suppose that those 3 different beings aren't just 3 different humans, although it would work that way, but 3 beings from 3 different realms. So we heard it: human, hungry ghost, worldly pleasure being. And the explanation was all 3 are looking at a single object, and all 3 are having completely different experiences of that object. And how can that be true if the object has its identity and quality in it the way we think? So they ask, what's happening when three beings perceive three different things when they're all looking at the apparently same thing? When they're all looking at one thing, how do they see three different things? And, you know, the explanation is a little bit cryptic, which is why it took 20 minutes to explain it. Each of the being is perceiving what their mind is forcing them to perceive. And their mind is forcing them to perceive information with an identity. So when their highest middle way is trying to explain the process, they say that their mind is perceiving a thing that has its material cause, it's the thing as the material cause, and the identity and qualities of that thing, and each is unique to the being who's perceiving it. So the object is serving as the material cause, and the being's karma is pushing that projection into that object's identity and qualities. So someone asked, oh, does that mean the object has its own material cause, and so it's outside of the karma of the being who's seeing it? And it's like, no. Another way of explaining this would be there's data, there's information, right? There's information that gets the label. Does that mean the information thing is there first and then it gets the label? Only in the sense of how we have to describe what's going on. But then if we go look for the piece of information, what we find is there's a more subtle piece of information that's getting a more subtle label. You can't say, oh, everything's just projection, and you shoot this projection out towards outer space and it lands. There's nothing to land on. But as soon as I say it has to have something to land on, our mind thinks, oh, that something's there independent of my label landing on it, right? And it's like, no. So think of the projection as being forced by the karma, and within the karma is the thing with its material cause and my identity of it, and all of that is what has to be happening in order for a given being to see what they see there. So in the debate, you would keep checking, well, then what is the object in the middle of the table? How can one thing be three different things all at the same time? And to wiggle out of that, you say, well, that object has three parts, but there's no object having three parts. There's three different beings perceiving the whole object the way they do. So in order to explain how that can be, there has to be the object as perceived by the hungry ghost, the object as perceived by the human, the object as perceived by the pleasure being. But if you take one of them away, now you have an object with two apparent parts. From its own side, no object with no parts from its own side. But if there's two beings perceiving something, in order to describe it, you would say, well, that thing has to have it being itself, it being perceived by the one being and it being perceived by the other being. And the way in English you say that, you say, well, there's the part that's perceived by the hungry ghost, and there's the part that's perceived by the human. Okay. In another way, it's like, here's the object, that here's the part you're seeing as the front, here's the part I'm seeing as the front. We are both seeing it in different ways. And so we can say, I see this part, you see that part, but we all believe we're seeing a whole thing. But all I see is the front, right? And you see me seeing the back. And that's why we fight. Don't be silly, I'm looking at the front of it. And you say, don't be silly, I'm looking at the front of it. Okay. All right. So the answer is their material cause and contributing factors cause them to experience the object in a certain way. Water for human, pus and blood for our hungry ghost, nectar for the pleasure being. And so therefore, the object has three parts, one for each of the beings perceiving it. Duh. Okay. So for tonight's class, we're back in Abhidharma school, the source of which is the sutras, Lord Buddha's direct teachings. And it's a few more different details about this thing we call karma. And the more of these little details we have in our encyclopedia about karma, the better we will grow to understand what's meant by that process. And then the better we can apply it to our own behavior choices, which is really the only reason to be studying all of this. So these are just, here's another way, another set of things to know about karma. There are the terms black and white karma, and they're apparently badly misunderstood. Look at that. Get you bigger. If we just heard the term black karma, white karma, we would probably think black karma must be karma that I make that's really negative and awful, which now I know means that that's a deed that I've done that will come back to me as really ugly, really unpleasant. And a white deed must mean, oh, something I do that's going to come back to me as nice, as pleasant. And although that is a factor in these concepts, that's not what they mean. So the Tibetan for black karma is nakpole. Nakpole, nak is black. White karma is karpole, karpoile. And then there's also a category called karnakdrepa, which means black and white mixed. Karnakdrepa. It reminds me of a mixed breed dog that's black and white. You know, if I ever end up with a mixed breed dog that's black and white, their name's gonna be Karnak. Which also, there was the amazing Karnak from Jimmy Carson. What was his name? Johnny Carson show, the amazing Karnak. Anyway, you guys are too young for that. So in order to understand Nakpole and Karpoile and Karnakdrepa, we need to talk about the realms of existence. So Tibetan cosmology offers that within samsara, within samsaric existence, there are three different realms of existence. One is called the desire realm. One is called the form realm. One is called the formless realm, which means not no form at all, but the minimal amount of form. As humans, we are in what's called the desire realm. They say it's called the desire realm because the beings in the desire realm's main motivating factor is food and sex, like food and procreation. And it feels to me that it's more subtle than that, in the sense that it's this being driven by I want, I don't want, right? And I need to survive. Okay, so desire realm is this survival realm. And it consists of 6 types of beings: hell realm beings, hungry ghost realm beings, animal realm beings, human realm beings, jealous god realm beings, and pleasure being realm beings. Each one, like all in the same location, if there's such a thing, but all existing at different vibrational levels. And so they tend to not be visible to each other. Hell realm beings can see other hell realm beings, of course, just as humans see other humans. We're kind of unique because we see animals, and presumably animals see us. But it's very rare that there's a human that perceives the hungry ghost realm or the jealous god realm, or the pleasure being realm. The vibrational levels are too different from our sensory apparatus's ability to perceive. As humans, we can experience an approximation of the form and formless realms in deep meditation. And in fact, there are practices, meditation practices, where the training is to take your mind deeper and deeper until your sense power function shuts down, or you actually become unaware of it. And you then continue to focus your mind more and more subtly, and you actually move through these layers that they call, now you're in the first level of the form realm, second level of the form realm. You can move yourself through all of those. You aren't actually in those different realms, but you're in a state of concentration that is such that if any one of those seeds planted while you were in that level of meditation becomes your projecting karma, it would push you into that level of that form realm for your next rebirth. So they're called causal levels. You're not actually in those form or formless realms while you're meditating, but your mind is as if it's there, and it plants the seeds that could land you there. Our tradition says those meditations are very pleasurable and very compelling, because each level of the form realm, each level of the formless realm is more and more pleasurable to be at. And so once you start into that, it's like our natural misperception once more, right? Which isn't wrong. It's just that we're not using it to apply our understanding of where that pleasure is actually coming from. So it's a dead end, says our tradition. it will land you in a form or formless realm rebirth. And as a form realm being, your experience there is pleasurable, pleasurable, pleasurable. And there's no wisdom involved. And so there's no impulse to share that pleasure with anybody. You know, to the extent that you perceive other form realm beings, they are all also blissed out. Why do you need to share anything? Right? If everybody's already happy. So you don't. And you are using up those seeds, burning them off, burning them off, burning them off, unaware that that's what's going on. And eventually you run out. When you run out, all that's left in your storehouse consciousness, if you have one of those, is your negative seeds that weren't the projecting karma that sent you to that realm. And so they say that form and formless realms are dead ends because you're going to wear off all that goodness. You end up in a lower realm and you have a whole lot of work to do to get to the point where you have enough goodness to hear somebody tell you about the pen. So our tradition says, you know, don't do those meditations. However, our tradition does say we need to reach the meditative concentration level that is the level that's planting seeds that would put us into the first level of the form realm if one of those was to be our projecting karma. But the reason we're doing it is that when we get there, we turn our deeply concentrated mind onto an analysis of the true nature of our object of meditation. And so we use that deep level of meditation to investigate emptiness and dependent origination. And we don't go any higher in concentration. Okay. So the point is, there are these realms, form and formless realm, where everything is very pleasurable. Every instant experienced is pleasure, pleasure, and more pleasure, but with no amount of wisdom. Those two realms, form and formless realm, they are still samsaric realms. They are not desire realm. Right? But they are still samsaric because those beings still have pervasive suffering. No obvious suffering, no that suffering of change, but their seeds wear out. And that's pervasive suffering. So now, sorry, I misspelled this, no wonder. Nakboile, black karma. Black karma has these, black karma has these two components. It has what's called collected, black karma collected, and black karma by essence. So black karma is karma which is collected in the desire realm, which is non-virtuous. What do we mean by a deed done which is non-virtuous? It's non-virtuous by way of the fact that when we get its result, it will be unpleasant. So we're talking about a deed done in the desire realm, which when it gives its result, it will be unpleasant. So when we say a karma collected, it means the deed gets done and the seed gets planted. It's been collected. It hasn't ripened yet. But when it does, by way of what black karma means, is it's going to be an unpleasant thing. Black karma is a karma collected in the desire realm, which is non-virtuous. They say its essence is black and its result is black. So the result being black is what we just talked about. A deed done in the desire realm that will bring an unpleasant result. The essence is black means that the being in the desire realm doing that deed is mentally afflicted. The essence is black means that that mind doing the deed is suffering, is a suffering being. The suffering being is doing deeds that's going to make more suffering. In their effort to stop suffering. See how pitiful we are? In our effort to stop suffering, we do stuff that just perpetuates suffering. No wonder we're crazy. So when we say that essence is black, it means the state of mind of the being, right, is mentally afflicted. And grossly, subtly, if we see ourselves as humans in a desire realm, we are mentally afflicted. Some days are worse than others, but okay, all of them. So the black karma is collected in the desire realm. It will bring back a result that's unpleasant. Its essence is black because the state of mind of the being doing it is suffering, and what they're doing is creating more suffering. And then the result is black because by definition, it's going to bring more suffering. The result's going to be a suffering. So black karma. Can we as humans make black karma? Yes. Animals can make black karma, hell beings, right? Desire realm beings can make black karma. Karpoile, white karma. White karma is virtuous deeds collected in the form realm. I want to rephrase that and say white karma would be virtuous deeds collected in the form realm, not the desire realm. The essence is white and the result is white. The result being white because the result of that deed will be pleasure. The essence is white because the mind of the being doing that deed is a pleasure being who's free of outright suffering. Yes, they still have pervasive suffering. But they're not afflicted in the moment of their doing a deed. But now the thing is, we just said beings in the form and formless realm, they don't make any good karma. They aren't compelled to share their pleasure. They're just enjoying it, enjoying it, enjoying it. They are in making imprints as they enjoy their pleasure. But they're not actually going out and doing what we would call a good deed, a white, a virtue. But if they did, they would be making white karma that has white result and white essence. Karnakdrepa means black and white mixed karma. And this actually refers to good deeds, virtue, collected in the desire realm. Any virtue collected in the desire realm is this category of black and white karma. Mixed black and white. I don't know, maybe we should call it gray, but they don't call it that. With black-white mix karma, the result is white. We did a kindness, but its essence is black because even as we did a kindness, our body and mind are suffering being. And we have a more obvious suffering or suffering of change going on as we do the deed that ends up qualifying as a deed that will make a pleasant result. But it's still done under this influence of a mentally afflicted mind, actively mentally afflicted. And so the essence is black. We can't actually do a white karma in the desire realm because of our state of mind, right? Our three kinds of sufferings going on. So again, the terms black and white karma does not refer to good deeds and bad deeds done by humans. Good deeds and bad deeds done in the desire realm. It's a much more specific terminology. In the desire realm, we can make we can make black karma, and we can make black and white karma, but we can't make white karma. Just another piece of the puzzle, right? Don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean we're doomed. It doesn't mean that at all. So now there's another kind. 6 minutes. There's another, I don't know, piece of information we can know about karma. And it's called sakmekile. Sakmekile means unstained karma. So there's this karma called unstained. So Abhidharma says there are some kinds of karma that we do that don't have a black or white result, but which function to remove black karma. Like, this is getting really detailed. There's something we can do that will remove black karma, but it itself is not making a new different karma. Like, its function is to do that removal, and it's already done. So in this school, Abhidharma school, the direct perception of selflessness, it would be an unstained karma, because that experience is they call it a pure karma, which wipes out old black karma, but it itself does not produce its own karmic result. Now, quite why they say that, I don't understand. I think it has to do with the absence factor. And it tells us, though, that as desire realm beings who can't make pure white karma, we can gather the goodness to help create the experience of the direct perception of selflessness, which that event wipes out black karma. Which is really helpful. Does it wipe out all our black karma from forever? That's a long story. So Geshe said at this point, it's important to note that when deeds are pure, like a Buddha's, they're not called karma anymore. So maybe that's why they're saying the direct perception of selflessness negates negative black karma, but is itself not a karma, when it is an imprinting on the mind for sure. But because it's a state of ultimate, not the ultimate, but ultimate for that school, you no longer call it karma. The term karma implies having to do with samsara, with the suffering realms. So when we say Buddhas don't make karma, they collect the two collections. They collect merit and wisdom. It means that they are imprinting and ripening and imprinting and ripening. But what we call that process is the two collections. They do have movement of the mind and what it motivates, and it's all pure. It's all unstained. So hopefully our goal is to reach that level of purity. Right? We want to bring all these black and white karmas to an end, right? Meaning black ones and not black ones and white ones, but all the black ones and all the black and white ones, right? They're their own category. To do that, we set about to purify our karma and go on to collect the two collections instead. As we do that, we will lose interest even in generating white karma, because white karma is karma of the form and formless realm that we know come to an end. So we're not even interested in that when we understand better. Once we recognize that all pleasures end, leaving us wanting for more, we finally, experience this shift in aspiration to something better, something higher. And that's what we mean by renunciation. When we recognize that there's nothing in this life that can really satisfy what we're looking for, and we understand why it's true that nothing can satisfy what we're looking for, we stop looking for it in this wrong way, in this wrong kind of world. There are many levels of Buddhism where the practitioner prays to be taken to Amitabha's Pure Land or to Tishida Paradise. And it's the tradition, and there can be very devout. And if there's no understanding of karma and emptiness, then their prayers are very likely motivated by a perception of an improved worldly life when they get there, like having the wrong idea of what it is, what it will be to be in Amitabha's Pure Land. Without this understanding of emptiness and karma, right, those prayers are generating a false aspiration, a false idea of what the result will be. It's hard to conceive of pleasure that won't wear out, and pleasure that really is really pleasure. So Abhidharma speaks to two methods that are taught in order to help us reach that place where our desire for more suffering life comes to an end. But let's take our break. I see we're at break time. So I will stop share. I will pause the recording. Please get refreshed. Pause. Yeah. Okay, are we back? Resume record, share screen. Okay. So we're down here, these two different methods of developing our renunciation, not the only two by any means. One is called Jikten Pelam, and the other is Jikten Le Depelam. Jikten is the word for our world, our suffering world, our samsaric world, and Pelam means the worldly path. So the worldly path to developing renunciation in the sense of cutting our attachment and grasping to what we think is pleasure in the samsaric realm. So this worldly path is the methods taught where we train our mind to reach those deep states of meditation that I was describing before, where you move your mind through from the desire realm up through each of the levels of the form realm, and then into the formless realm, and into each of the levels of the formless realm. And each of those meditative concentration levels get more and more subtle. When we reach those different subtle levels in meditation, they're called the causal levels, meaning causal form realm level 1, causal form realm level 2, because you're not actually in the form realm level 1. You're in the concentration level that's making the seeds that will cause you to be in form realm level 1 someday, if those seeds ripen at the right moment. So whatever level you spend the most time in makes the most of those seeds and increases the likelihood of one of those seeds being the projecting karma. Not that they take so much weight over any other seeds, but the more you have, right, the more likely they could be one of those projecting karmas. So now, to have the direct perception of emptiness, I already said, the mind must be in the causal level called the first level of the form realm, meaning it's the first actual level where your desire realm sensory apparatus is so shut down that your mind is, there's no ripening of those during that time, so there's no effort or struggle to be distracted by them. They're just, the mind has them all shut down, and we're in this level of the form realm, and it's pleasurable. It's very pleasurable just to reach that level, and then each of the next levels of form and then formless realm, they get more and more pleasurable, which is how it's so compelling. Those meditations are so compelling. It's like, it's so pleasurable to be there. You stay easily for the period of time that you said you were going to stay. What if you go into that and you didn't say, my meditation's going to be an hour and 2 minutes? you know, there may or may not be anything to pop you out. 6 days later, right? You come down out of your first level form realm meditation, and you know, your world has passed you by somehow. So, because it's so compellingly pleasurable, when we come out of it, we want more. And we reach a platform where it's like gets easier and easier to go higher and higher, and it gets more and more pleasurable, and so we want to. So our worldly pleasures pale in comparison. And you could see how this could become quite dysfunctional, right? You know, if you're a family person and you have a job and you have obligations and you get into meditations that are so pleasurable, you don't come out of them. It's like, that's going to cause trouble. And the problem with those meditations is if we're not well trained, we won't use that platform to look at the emptiness of the object, and we'll just go for more and more pleasure. So although this is a method of overcoming our desire for worldly pleasure, it's not in the slightest, says our tradition, a method that overcomes our ignorant wanting. So blissed out, when you do come out of it, you're right back into some state of mind, thinking that, you know, these worldly desires are like nothing compared to what I experienced there, but still thinking that the berry pie has the pleasure in it. So we haven't gotten anywhere, except that now we want this other kind of pleasure. So our tradition says, yes, this is a method to reduce our attachment to worldly pleasures, to grow renunciation. But it's not a method that helps us stop perpetuating the misunderstanding that makes our samsaric world be something we even want to renunciate. Jikten de le depelang is the path which is beyond the world. Geshe-la says probably better is the path which transcends the world. So in this method, you don't use moving through the different levels of meditative concentration to reach higher and higher pleasure, to come to see that the pleasures of the world are not worth it. Instead, we give up our ignorant desire and ignorant aversion of the desire form, and even formless realm to some extent, because of our understanding of selflessness, right? So Abhidharma school uses the term selflessness, no self nature. What they mean by it is a little teeny bit different than what we mean by emptiness, but we can think of it similarly. When we understand an object's selflessness, it allows us to eliminate our desire for it. When we see that the triple berry pie's pleasure is not really in it, from it, then what happens to my grasping to that thing I'm calling triple berry pie in my effort to get the pleasure from it? It's like just at the level of, realizing the pleasure doesn't come from it. If we can hold that right in the face of a beautiful slice of pie, we might still eat it. And if we have pleasure from it, have a different concept of what's happening. It does not mean, our renunciation does not mean, okay, no more nice things at all. That's not the right conclusion about the objects' pleasures are not coming from them, in them. Objects that bring us pleasure are ripening results of some way in which we did something kind to somebody else, because through that piece of pie, I'm ripening some kind of pleasure. Pleasure that wears out, oh, phooey, but some kind of pleasure. Our attachment and aversion shrinks as our wisdom about where pleasure and unpleasure comes from grows, because they are contradictory. You can't blame the piece of pie for your pleasure and know that it doesn't come from the pie at the same time. We can toggle, but you can't have them both in your mind at the same time. So the path which is beyond the world is this path of study, right? Training, contemplation, study, meditation, where yes, we're wanting to reach that level of concentration where our sensory perceptions are shut down so they quit distracting us. Thank you very much. But then we use that concentration to penetrate into that true nature and qualities of our object of meditation. Whether the object of meditation is the Lama or paradise or that berry pie or that angry yelling boss experience, when our focus can be in there on that without, what was that? Whoa, right? Itch, scratch. Without that kind of distraction, we can penetrate very deeply, swiftly, and clearly into the no self nature of our object, which will grow to include our subject side perceiving the object, which will grow into a clearer and clearer intellectual understanding, which gets stronger and stronger, through which we're able to then choose the behaviors that will help us see it even more clearly. All right. So both of these methods require training and meditation, concentration. But that's about where they diverge. So in order to reach those levels of deep meditation, it takes training. Some people, they hear about it, they can sit down and do it, just like the natural athlete, that can watch somebody play baseball and then step up and hit home runs without training. But most of us need to practice. We need to be taught. We need to learn the details, the steps, apply them, make mistakes, do better, try again, train. Training for meditation is just like training for everything else, a little bit daily, especially when you don't feel like it, goes a whole lot further than, oh, I'll do it on weekends when I have time. It needs to become a priority. But the priority of it comes from our own wish, our own desire, not from somebody telling us we have to do it, of course. Geshe-la says, our hero Jetsun-Kappa, he spent lots of time in meditation. He spent lots of time studying, and he spent lots of time praying to his lama. Who was his lama? Manjushri, Lord Manjushri. Asking Manjushri, please, give me wisdom, give me wisdom, give me wisdom. And it just feels weird, like that nobody can give us wisdom. So why would somebody like Lama Tsongkhapa spend time begging his Lama to just give him wisdom? And I'm going to leave the question open. Think about it in terms of karmic seeds planted. Why do we ask for blessings if even Buddhas can't give blessings? Or can they? Okay, so there's another thing to know about karma. And that is that when any karma is collected, meaning any deed that's done that plants that seed, there are many different factors involved that influence what that result is going to be like. We could do the same deed. We probably do this a lot. We do the same deed every day. And we might think, oh, then I'm planting the same seed every day. But when we look at it, we'll see that there are all these nuances of what's going on in the time when I'm doing the same deed over and over again, which when we understand these other factors, we'll see that, of course, I can't ever do the same deed exactly the same way. And so I can't have two karmic seeds ripen in the identical way. So the more we understand all the different factors that influence the seed being planted, we come to see how those influence the result as well. And it gives us more information that we use to design our choice of behaviors. So this is called the four parts to a karmic path, or called a path of action, Lelam, here. And this is what has evolved into Diamond Cutter Institute's 4 steps. So no doubt you're familiar. This is where it came from. And you'll see that Geshe Michael has, morphed it a bit to make it more user-friendly for the 4 steps. But when we see these details, it's like, whoa, now I've got more information to work with in doing my DCI 4 steps. So I hope I can impart that. So it's called a path of action, Lelam. But what it's trying to convey to us is these different factors involved in planting our seeds that influence the different factors of its ripening. So they say that there are 4 parts of a path of action. And it doesn't mean that if you're missing one of them, you don't make a karmic seed. It's that the karmic seed we make is different than if you have all 4 at their highest strength. So it's like we've got these myriad nuances that this is teaching us about. So the 4 parts of a path of action are here. Shi, Sampa, Jorwa, Tartuk. It's like a mantra. Shi, Sampa, Jorwa, Tartuk. Shi means the basis, and it means the object involved, the object towards which we do our deed. Whether it's a living object or a non-living object, It's the object, she. Sampa is the thinking involved in the doing the deed. And it has three factors itself. Jorwa is the undertaking of the deed. And Tartuk is the finalization, finalizing the deed. So these are most useful when we understand them in the context of the deeds of the 10 non-virtues. And then you can extrapolate that to the deeds of the 10 virtues. And for the 10 non-virtues, you want to figure out how to use this information to make them not strong or to not make them at all. And for the 10 virtues, we want to use this information to see how we can make them very strong, right? And repetitively. So for instance, for example, Geshe Michael chose the non-virtue of killing as the example for these 4 parts of a path of action. It does so in your reading. But I would encourage you sometime to sit down and go through these with each of the 10 non-virtues. And then as a fun exercise, flip them around and go through them with what would be the 10 virtues. So your example, your homework asks, give an example of the basis in the path of action for the non-virtue of killing, for example. So the object is that the being you're going to kill, right? That's the object. That object has to be a living being. You can't set about to kill a rock. If you did, you wouldn't have a complete path of action. You would have an incomplete path of action, which still makes karma. Some weird karma of trying to kill a rock would be planted in your mind. It would come back as some weird experience. I don't know, right? Somebody trying to kill your shoe or something. It doesn't make sense. So the basis for stealing, the basis would be an object that we see as being owned by somebody else. So second one, the thinking, sampa, the thinking. Mainly this means our intention, our motivation, but it has these 3 different factors. I'm going to come back to them. What am I thinking about this living being that is my object? Jorwa is the undertaking. It's where we are going to do the deed. In this act of killing, there's this living being. There's something in my mind that's compelling me. I find my weapon. I go find the being. And I set about to carry out my action. Now you can see along the way, there's going to be a lot of different factors going on here. Tartuk is the completion of the deed. So in order to collect a complete path of action, we have to complete the deed. If we don't complete the deed, we don't have a complete path of action, but we do have karmic seeds planted. And they're going to ripen differently than if we had completely completed the deed. right? So I misunderstood this for a long time. It's like, well, so I set about to kill something and I stop, then I don't make that karma at all. It's like, well, I still made my sampa and my jorwa karma, right? And I probably made karma of not completing the deed, which in killing would be a good thing, but not completing deeds can be not good things, right? So all of these are factors. We don't actually complete the path of action until we see the result happen to the object we intended. So the tartuk may not happen at the moment. You know, suppose I go to, I don't know, awful, kill the chicken for dinner, and I injure it, but it gets away. So I didn't actually complete the deed, but I go looking for the chicken. And an hour later, I find it, 3 miles away, dead of its wound. That's when I complete the deed. Do you see? It has to be done for the complete path of karma to now have a seed that it's going to ripen as a complete path of karma seed, which is going to be different than if I went to kill the chicken but didn't, right? Or if I injured the chicken but never found whether it died or not. All of those scenarios are going to come back to me in different ways than if I completely saw myself finish off that poor chicken. We have a basis that's like consistent with what our deed is going to be. We have what our thinking is. We have our setting about to do it, and we have our completing it. And within the thinking about it, there are these 3 factors involved. Dushe means the correct identification of our basis. The karmic path is different if we've incorrectly identified our object, right? That makes sense, right? I want to go kill a chicken for dinner, but on my way to finding the chicken, I come across a, I don't know, already dead rabbit on the side of the road. And I decide, oh, the rabbit will make good soup. I don't need to kill the chicken. My chicken that I wanted to kill for dinner, I went to do it, but I didn't do it. Different path of action than if I left the rabbit, went after the chicken, finished off the chicken the way I intended. Dushe. Proper identification also means, it has to be the one you intended to do your deed towards. So it's a different karmic seed if you intend to, kill Joe, and you sneak into the bedroom at night and you see, these lumps in the bed, and you think Joe is on the right side, so you stab Joe, and it turns out to be Joe's wife. It's a different karmic seed because you didn't go in intending to kill Joe's wife. You intended to get Joe, but you didn't get Joe. You got Joe's wife. You still get the seed, do you see, of killing something, but you had wrong identification. So now the seed is different. Nyongmong is mental affliction. Geshe says bad thought. Any thought under the influence of one or more of the 3 poisons qualifies as a nyongmong. But our bad thoughts can be flagrant or they can be subtle. And again, we can imagine the different karmic seed planted if, I'm after that Joe because he was, hurt me so badly, and when I go after Joe is going to be different than if, I don't know, I'm just in a really bad mood and I feel like hurting somebody. And then he happens to be the one, right? Different seed. Are they awful seeds? Absolutely. But they're going to give different results. Right? A result where somebody's after me because they're so mad at me, versus a result that somebody's just had a bad day, so they do something nasty to me. The bad thought that's pushing us to want to do towards the object what we're gonna do, whether we fully do it or not. Then kunlong means the motivation or the intention. So kunlong is like the level of motivation influences that seed as well. So for instance, I'm really, really upset with that guy, Joe, and I've got justified that I should kill him. That's different motivation than if I run over Joe by accident with my car because I was being careless. I still have done the same thing. I've killed Joe. Joe is a living being. But I didn't have the set out to do it under a big bad mental affliction when I hit and killed Joe with my car. That was out of carelessness. And maybe even in the moment, I saw Joe as like a scarecrow. I didn't even identify him well. But I did end up seeing him dead. I've got seeds that are different than if I set out to do it. And, law does the same thing. There's a difference in punishment from manslaughter versus premeditated murder, right? But our minds are doing the same. These different factors involved influence the seed being planted. So all of these apply to our seeds, whether we're the one doing the deed or we've put somebody else up to it. So, I might say, I need Joe killed, but I'm not willing to do it. I know somebody who is willing to do it for the money. I'll pay that guy and let him do it, and he'll get the bad karma, right? And it's like, yes, he gets bad karma too, but I get the karma of killing the guy, even though I didn't do it. And in the reading, it says, they all get the same karma as the one who does the deed, since they all are engaged in a common goal. In the case of war or the like. And it's like, ooh, this like hits me in the gut every time I read it, because there's so many things that seem to be so far out of our control that we as citizens are then getting the seeds for, just because we're citizens and we have a government that makes decisions on our behalf. And this does not cut us any slack. And Geshe-la says that probably the best we can do is to write your government administration each time it changes and just say, I pay my taxes, I will pay my taxes because I have to. And I understand some of those taxes are going to go to, right, military interventions, you know, but all the things that you don't agree with. And just say, because I believe in karma and emptiness, I reject being a part of my taxes having to pay for that stuff. You're going to get an answer back that says, thank you for sharing your thoughts on this matter, right? It's not going to address anything, but you've seen yourself make a statement that you've tried to remove yourself one step from that karma that our country is making, that we are a part of. And then we four powers as much as we can, because it's not enough. There's no place we can go where we can avoid this situation of making karma related to all the rotten stuff that our governments do. But on the other hand, our governments do a lot of good stuff too, and we get that karma as well. Right, so focus more on that. I never wrote a letter saying, thank you for doing all this other stuff. Maybe I should do that too, but yeah, that's a thought. So Geshe said, this is a lot of food for thought. It really is, you know, when I say we're getting pieces of the jigsaw puzzle all in different piles, this is a really important pile. This 4 parts of a path of action, and this understanding that, you know, anything I'm a part of, you know, I'm still making those karmas as if I'm the one on the front line, and how to work with that. Geshe's example, he said, if I work for a company and the company does negative deeds, how is my karma influenced? Right? We are getting that karma. If I work, let's see, if I eat meat that I buy in the store, how is that karma different in its result than if I go fishing for fun and eat what I caught? How is it different than if I'm dying in the desert and I manage to catch a mouse? They're all different scenarios, similar situations, different results will come about. Geshe says it's easy to fool ourselves, thinking we're totally innocent, when in fact we're just ignorant. Once we know the principles, we must use them to change our behaviors on gross and then more subtle ways. Not must, because Geshe says so. When we understand the principles, our own heart says, you know, you can't keep doing what you're doing and expect to get anything different than what you've ever gotten. Sarani, you know, quit blaming everything and everybody else and do something different. Act differently. Behave differently. The only thing that can bring a good result is kindness. And the motivation to be kind, to be helpful, when the motivation to be kind, to be helpful, is to plant positive karma for everybody's benefit, right? Then our kindness can help us go up the spiral instead of spiraling or even sinking with our spiral. It's so easy to fool ourselves into thinking our motivation is to serve others when it's stained with self-gain. If we happen to take some action from which we immediately experience some pleasure, it's just coincidence. And we don't see it that way at all. The goodness has come from some goodness that we've done in the past. And when we can know that as it's happening, we would live our lives very differently. We would be very keenly aware that it's what I do in the moment that's important. Not a reaction to something. It's the response that's important. It's not really even important what I did in the past or what I want in the future. When we understand the principles of karma, it's like, yes, we want something in the future, but it's our behavior now, behavior now, behavior now is where our power lies. Okay. But situations are not black and white. If they were, it would be easier. We find ourselves in a situation where we need to choose how to behave. I mean, that's the thing, choosing how to behave. And we don't know the others. We don't know, we think we know the others' intention, but we really don't. And we don't really know how we're going to respond is going to influence them. We try to be kind and they yell back. We think then, oh, that didn't work. Maybe I should yell at them. No, that's wrong. We still be kind. They still yell back, right? It's like, gee, we do the best we can in the moment. If we keep doing what we've always done to avoid unpleasant and try to get pleasant, we will keep doing the wrong things. And when we do something and it seems to bring us something pleasant, it will fool us into thinking that that worked. And it will allow us to perpetuate our wrong thinking. So in a sense, it's better when we get a reaction to something that is not what we expect, because it's an opportunity to go, oh, see, it doesn't really work. It's like if you turn your key and the car doesn't start, instead of saying, oh, shoot, right, what's wrong with this car? Go, yay, prove to myself that what I do in the moment doesn't bring what comes next. All right. So there's two more things we need to talk about. It's called Le Kilam. Oh, one more thing, but it has two parts. Le Kilam. Le Kilam means a path of karma. This is confusing. A path of karma versus le, a karma. Think of a path of karma meaning a path to karma, right? Karma means movement of the mind and what it motivates, meaning my mind moves to something and I think, do and say something towards that. The path to that is something that makes the mind move. There's something that makes the mind move that is the domino that triggers the do and say. All right, so we've been talking about movement of the mind and what it motivates as karma. But we haven't talked about what makes the mind move. Well, why doesn't it just sit there? Well, of course, it's moving all the time. And in yoga tradition, they say, well, the mind moves because the winds move. But what makes the winds move? The mind moving. Wait, how's that work? Right. So there's something that triggers the mind to move. And that's called Lekilam, the path of karma. I think of it as the path to karma because it makes, right? It makes the karma happen. So what are these things that are a path of karma? Your reading will say, let's consider the 3 wrong deeds of mind: craving, ill will, and wrong view. These are a path of karma because they function to move the mind to its object. So the implication here, or what Geshe is teaching us here, is that these 3, craving, ill will, wrong view, are this path of action, path of karma, but not themselves karma. This is where it gets confusing. So if you think of it as these 3, craving, ill will, wrong view, are the path to karma, they are what trigger the mind to move to an object. The trigger is not a new karmic seed being planted. The mind that moves, and then the saying, doing as a result, those are planting new seeds. So the triggers are called the path of karma, but not karma themselves. Is it karma to have craving, ill will, wrong view in our minds? Yes. But those 3 poisons are like this ubiquitous state of mind that, yes, they're inside every karmic seed. Yes, they are planted and replanted, but they are the thing that triggers the mind to move. Our ignorant disliking is the I want, I don't want. It's that subtle. The instant our eyes open in the morning, we have this, right? I want, I don't want. I don't want to get out of bed, but I want to go to work, right? It's happening, being. And that at the most subtle level, it's that triggers the mind to go to an object. It's an object that is what we want or what we don't want. And all of it is being misperceived, of course. So this information about karma is that these 3 non-virtues of mind, the 3 poisons, craving, ill will, wrong view, trigger the movement of the mind. And that movement of the mind then leads to the action, body and speech. So those 3 are paths of karma, but not a karma. Your answer key says. The 7 of body and speech, meaning the other 10 non-virtues of body and speech, those are both karmas and paths of karma. They also trigger the mind to move more. And they are the actions that mind does. So your homework's going to say something like, what's a karma, what's a path of karma but not a karma? And what's a karma and a path of karma? And what's a karma but not a path of karma? So the path of karma or the path to karma are those three poisons in the mind. A karma but not a path of karma is the movement of the mind that they trigger. And then things that are both a karma and a path of karma is the mind moving and then the deeds and speech happening. And the path of karma, but not a karma, is that which triggers the mind to move, meaning those three poisons. I said that already. Yeshua says, the tradition says that we need to cook this. Or no, it says this, the reading says, there's a lot of debate about this. And Yeshua says, when the texts say there's a lot of debate about this, what they mean to say is that the ramifications of what I just shared really can't be perceived without deep contemplation and meditation upon them. So this is one of those things. It's like, okay, I've got the terminology down, but why is that important? Why are they making a distinction between something that triggers the mind to move versus the mind moving versus what we do and say and think as a result of the mind moving? Why is that so important? Okay. That's class 7. You are becoming karma encyclopedias, truly, from this course. It's quite extraordinary. And that's a great, great goodness. And with it, you will someday help that other in that deep and ultimate way, such that they will go on to stop their distress forever. And maybe they won't even ever need to study all the ACI courses because you did it for them. And that's a great, great goodness. And so be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guides. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, even challenge you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it, and then carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom is there for you. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. Everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness. Sharing it with everyone in their world. And may it be so. Okay, thank you so much. Class 7. Oh, thank you for doing your papers. I will see you, what is this, Thursday, Sunday, okay. Stopping recording. All right, have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.